December 12, 1942. Somewhere in the Tunisian desert, German General Hans-Jürgen von Arnim raised his field glasses as a column of American vehicles crested a ridge, their silhouettes shimmering in the morning heat. He expected to see tanks, perhaps armored half-tracks. Instead, what rolled down the slope was stranger, swarms of small, boxy, open-top vehicles bouncing over rocks at impossible speeds. They were everywhere, darting like insects, kicking up trails of dust. A lieutenant beside him muttered, "Spielzeugautos," toy cars. Von Arnim lowered his glasses and frowned. He didn't laugh. He was watching the most underestimated weapon of the war, the American Jeep. The Willys MB, known simply as the Jeep, would go on to embody American mobility more than any tank or plane. By the war's end, American factories produced nearly 650,000 of them. One Jeep for every 50 soldiers who served. To German generals raised on horse-drawn wagons and rationed fuel, the numbers defied comprehension. Their armies struggled with logistics, relying on requisitioned civilian trucks, and even oxen on the Eastern Front. Yet here was an enemy deploying a vehicle so simple, cheap, and reliable that it turned every platoon into a mobile unit. Nazi intelligence reports had dismissed the Jeep as impractical, a gimmick. They were disastrously wrong. The origins of this machine lay in July 1940, when the U.S. Army issued a desperate request: design a lightweight, four-wheel-drive reconnaissance car weighing less than 1/300 pounds, capable of carrying a machine gun, climbing 60% grades, and hitting 50 miles per hour. Only two companies dared to try: American Bantam and Willys Overland. Bantam produced the first prototype, but it was Willys who refined the design with their Go Devil engine, a 60-horsepower marvel that gave the squat vehicle surprising strength. Ford entered production too, stamping F on nearly every part they made. American soldiers joked that the Jeep was so standardized you could swap a bolt from one factory into another without hesitation. German officers captured one and were astonished to find the parts numbered and interchangeable, an alien concept in their own handcrafted engineering culture. By 1942, one Jeep rolled off American assembly lines every 2 minutes. To grasp the scale, consider this. Ford's Rouge plant in Michigan once produced 100 Jeeps per hour, running 24 hours a day. In the same time Germany might build one complex staff car, America produced dozens of Jeeps. And they weren't limited to roads. With four-wheel drive and leaf spring suspension, the Jeep could tackle mud, snow, desert, and jungle. It could ford streams, climb embankments, and turn tighter than any German truck. Soldiers quickly realized it was more than transport. It was a Swiss Army knife on wheels. They mounted stretchers on them as ambulances, welded steel plates, and called them gun jeeps, stretched chassis into railroad trolleys, and even strapped jeeps to gliders to drop behind enemy lines. One little-known fact astonished German intelligence. In 1942, the U.S. shipped jeeps to Russia through the Lend-Lease program, over 50,000 of them. Soviet generals praised them as superior to their own light vehicles, nicknaming the Jeep the American Mule. At Stalingrad, some Red Army units used Jeeps as forward artillery spotters, dashing through rubble to guide Katyusha rocket fire. German troops were shocked to find themselves shelled by rockets spotted by what looked like a civilian runabout. In North Africa, Rommel himself noticed the difference. His Afrika Korps relied on captured British trucks and fuel-thirsty German vehicles that broke down in sandstorms. Meanwhile, American Jeeps skipped across dunes, bringing ammunition and water to frontline units faster than the Germans could react. A German staff report from early 1943 recorded bitterly, "The enemy possesses a small motor vehicle capable of sustaining long marches, carrying men and equipment over terrain our machines cannot cross. Their mobility exceeds ours in every measure. The psychology of the Jeep was as important as its mechanics. To German officers steeped in aristocratic traditions, war machines were supposed to be grand. Massive tanks, sleek aircraft, imposing artillery. The Jeep looked absurd, yet its very humility hid its genius. General Eisenhower would later call it one of the three decisive weapons of the war, alongside the C-47 and the landing craft. When von Arnim's staff tried to calculate Jeep numbers in Tunisia, they concluded, wrongly, that Americans had inflated figures. Surely, no country could waste resources on so many small cars. But at that very moment, American convoys were unloading thousands more in Algiers and Oran, each packed in crates, like children's toys ready to assemble. Another fact few Germans realized: a Jeep could be packed into a wooden crate, shipped overseas, and assembled by 4 men in less than an hour. U.S. quartermasters loved it. German supply officers read reports of vehicles arriving in boxes and scoffed, believing it propaganda. In truth, the Jeep's modularity made it the most deployable vehicle in history. The shock deepened in Europe. After D-Day, Jeeps became the arteries of the Allied advance. They carried generals like Patton, medics under fire, chaplains giving field sermons, even Hollywood stars like Clark Gable, who toured the front. German prisoners marched past miles of Jeeps parked nose to nose, an unending river of steel and rubber. To them, it seemed as if America's factories had simply decided to give every soldier his own private car. In one captured letter, a German soldier wrote to his wife, "The Americans drive to war as if going on holiday. Even their officers ride in open cars while we march on foot. It is not fair. It is not possible." In reality, it was industrial democracy at work. The Jeep's simplicity meant anyone could drive it. Anyone could fix it. A farmer drafted from Kansas could repair its carburetor with pliers. A teenager from Brooklyn could swap out its transmission in the mud. Spare parts flowed so freely that American mechanics sometimes built whole Jeeps from leftovers. German generals, trapped in shortages, could only shake their heads. By war's end, Jeeps appeared everywhere. On Normandy beaches, in Italian vineyards, across Burmese jungles, even on Pacific islands, where Seabees strapped them to barges and drove them ashore. They pulled artillery, carried radar sets, hauled mail, and delivered generals to surrender ceremonies. A Jeep drove MacArthur onto the deck of the USS Missouri for Japan's surrender. Symbolically, it outlasted the Reich's proudest weapons. For the Germans, the Jeep was a revelation and a humiliation. Their armies had mocked it as a toy, only to learn it was the most effective workhorse of the war. When von Arnim finally surrendered in Tunisia, captured documents reveal his staff asked American officers about Jeep numbers one last time. The Americans laughed. How many? Enough. And that was the truth. America hadn't just built a car. They had built a symbol of industrial might. A machine so ordinary, it became extraordinary. By 1945, with 500,000 Jeeps rolling worldwide, German generals knew the math. Each Jeep might be small, but multiplied by hundreds of thousands, it was overwhelming. The war wasn't only won with tanks and bombers. Sometimes it was won with a little four-wheeled machine that could go anywhere, do anything, and never stop.